A reporter on CP24 tries to trap Pierre Poilievre. He expertly sits her right down. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. Found this clip of Pierre Poilievre having an interview with CP24. They were trying to trap him on this whole GST, like somehow the GST has been around for 50 years, but somehow taking it off is going to have a major impact on the economy. Anyway, that's a different topic. In this one, I just want to point how the far left-leaning reporter thought she was going to pressure him and push him, and finally, even though he never changed the subject, she elected to run away from the question because he completely shuts her down.
My first question for you, will you be voting against this?
Well, we're going to read over the bill when it comes forward. What we know so far is that it's a tiny 2-month tax trick to distract from Trudeau's plan to quadruple the carbon tax on heat and housing, food and fuel. That will cost thousands of dollars to every single family and will be a permanent tax hike if he's reelected. So a 2-month temporary tax trick will not compensate for a 61 cent a liter carbon tax. It's interesting, this whole gimmick comes to an end in February. What happens in April? Well, Trudeau's carbon tax goes up another 20%, and that will raise the cost of gas, heat, and then indirectly everything that comes in a truck. If you got it, a truck brought it. And when you jack up the tax on the fuel those truckers put in their vehicles, you jack up food, heat, clothing, everything you buy. So my plan is, let's axe the carbon tax permanently to bring home affordable prices for Canadians.
Well, it's very straightforward. I mean, let's remember, the GST is only on a couple of items. It's not like they're suspending on everything in the whole planet or in the whole country. It's just, some shirts, shoes, magazines, and booze. It's just a half measure that's designed to trick you into thinking that you're somehow getting a break, but you won't see any impact on your wallet. You won't see any impact at the till. So it's nothing. It's just a soundbite. Now, of course, getting rid of the carbon tax is a great idea. That would make a strong economic impact on this country. Of course, Pierre Poilievre's answer was right on the money. It was concise, it was articulate, and he spoke to the question. But this being a far left fanatic, she couldn't let go, so she had to try again.
To be clear here, will you vote against the measure, though, if it's brought in the House of Commons? Is that a yes or a no?
We'll decide. Our caucus meets next Wednesday, and we'll pick up the piece of legislation, read it over, and decide what's best for Canadians. We know that we have a better plan, which is to axe the carbon tax. Also take GST off new homes under $1 million permanently. Save you 50 grand on a new home. We're going to push the provinces to do that as well. Take the PST, or the provincial sales tax. That would save over $100,000 on a new home. That's the kind of conservative tax cut that will be permanent when I'm Prime Minister.
So she tries to ask him again. And of course, he says that he thinks that he should cut the GST on homes, which is a especially under $1 million, because now you're just talking about, middle-class people who are buying homes. You're not talking about the super wealthy or anything that are buying 3 or 4 penthouses that combined cost 10 times that. This is people trying to buy their forever home, or at least the home that they're going to live in for the next 10, 15 years. And to have no taxes on that purchase is an incredible amount of money to save. It's a great idea. Now, did the far left anchor decide that was far enough, and she was going to ask the hopefully soon to be Prime Minister of Canada, future Prime Minister of Canada, some other question?
You've just told me all the ways that you support giving Canadians a tax break and making life more affordable. That's what you say you're all about. You're all about axing the carbon tax. So why won't you say whether you support this tax break for Canadians?
Well, because I haven't read the bill yet. So you had to know. What you've read is a press release, and I don't vote for press releases. I don't vote for Justin Trudeau's press conferences. And what we know is that you can't believe anything Trudeau says about taxes. Remember, he said you'd be better off with the carbon tax, and then his parliamentary budget officer came out and said that every single middle-class family will pay more in the tax than they get back in rebates. Remember, he said he'd help the middle class, and now middle-class people are lined up at food banks and housing costs have doubled. So it's not enough for me to believe what he says. I have to know what's in the actual bill. And when I do, I'll make a decision and do the right thing.
Third time in a row, she asked him the question. Fairly straightforward answer. I can't decide on what's going to be, how I'm going to lean on the bill until I read it. I mean, that makes perfect sense. That's a logical thing to do. That's a responsible and appropriate answer. You would think after 3 times in a row of having this answer, of answering it directly and telling her that he could never make a definitive answer sitting there on the couch without having to look at the bill, that would be enough. But it's not enough because the far left is trying desperately to brainwash people into thinking that somehow Pierre Poilievre is not genuine. That's the idea, right? They want to lower Pierre Poilievre down to Justin Trudeau's level and Jagmeet Singh's level. They're not trying to make those guys elevate. They're trying to bring Pierre Poilievre down because that's all they got. That's the only tactic that they have. And they're hoping that people that are not only paying attention to little sound bites are not going to make educated decisions. So you would think that that would be enough, right? She would go on to other questions about Pierre Poilievre or his platform or any of the conservative plans for the future. You would be incorrect.
I wonder what message you're sending to Canadians, Mr. Poilievre, when you say you're all about axing the tax, you're all about bringing taxes down, making life more affordable, and in the same breath you say you're not sure you're going to support a tax break for Canadians at a time when they're struggling so badly.
Why are they struggling so badly? It's been 9 years that Trudeau's promised to make them better off. And here we are. You're right. They are struggling so badly. And I think your own words are a condemnation of his track record, with food prices rising 37% faster in Canada than they have in the United States, just as the carbon tax came in. Housing costs doubled. Here we are in Toronto, where you have to earn well over $200,000 to afford a home. That was never the case before Justin Trudeau ran money printing and immigration out of control, before he built up all these bureaucracies that block home building. Clearly, Canadians are struggling. Justin Trudeau is the problem. He's not the solution. What we need is a common sense plan for permanent tax cuts. Axe the carbon tax, axe the GST on new homes, and slash the bureaucracy and waste to bring down deficits, interest rates, and inflation.
He really flipped the script on her that time. See him when he said, "Oh, why is that where Canadians are struggling?" And she had to look down at her lap because she knew that she'd been caught yet again. Another reporter who was in the heap and the wreckage of trying to take on Pierre Poilievre. And just so we can do it quickly, I'll let you hear how she the next thing out of her mouth.
Okay, I'm going to move on now.
Now that you've tried to browbeat the question into him and try to make it go for your soundbite, now that he's flipped the script on you, made you look like a complete fool, all of a sudden now you're going to move on. Now that he's made you look like you don't know what you're doing and you're just a partisan fighting for Justin Trudeau with a microphone, now you're going to move on. Maybe you should have moved on when he answered the question the first time. Instead of making yourself look foolish, you would have just simply gotten the answer that you want. You would have come out of the interview unscathed. You were looking for a soundbite, and now the only soundbite is you collapsing in on yourself because Pierre Poilievre was able to take every question that you said. He didn't get mad. He didn't lose his mind. He didn't throw a tantrum. He didn't have to try and obfuscate or feed you a bunch of malarkey. He simply answered the question honestly. And as a result of being honest, you see, that's the problem. When he was being honest and you're not being honest, honest people are oftentimes come out ahead in an argument, or in this case, an interview. I think that the CP24 lady needs to understand that this small little cut on the GST it's only a few items. It's not like it's across the board. It's only for a little while, and it's only there because it helps Justin Trudeau. They're desperate. The economy has collapsed and the GDP has shrunk yet again. Nobody is spending any money. Nobody has any money to spend. What money they do have is not going towards the things that are on that list, like magazines and alcohol. Who buys magazines? So you're telling me you're going to save $1 on a Cosmo. That's really what they want you to think. Or you're going to save some money on those high-heeled shoes that nobody has the party to take you to anyway. Oh, we're going to cut the GST on booze. Why don't you cut the federal taxes on booze? There's a lot of it on that. Why don't you cut the taxes on gas and watch how the price of everything around you drops? But you can't do that because you're really not trying to help Canadians. If you were trying to help Canadians, your policies would have reversed 5 years ago, 6 years ago. This is year 10. There are people whose children were in elementary school who are now graduating from college in the time that this guy and these liberals have been driving our economy into the ground, to turning us into a terrible economy, a third-rate economy. All the while, they're living large and flying private jets. Just think of how shameless these guys are to know that that's the state going on around them and they refuse to call an election. Imagine in your mind trying to deal with these people in your personal life. I mean, they are a joke. And they know they're a joke. Do they say to themselves, man, how embarrassing am I? How embarrassed am I by the behavior of me and my colleagues? Let me call an election and get out of this mess. No. They say, oh, it's not me, it's you. It's ridiculous. I wanted to show you this because I like to show that when Pierre Poilievre outsmarts or puts these reporters in their place, because it helps for you all to understand that what you might be hearing from the mass media, from the corporate media, is not reflected in the facts. Plus, I think it's funny. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you for listening. Oh, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I'll talk to you next time.